Hi there, Titans, and welcome back to another Titan Academy video. Today we'll be talking about survey elements in Titan Web. We'll be providing you with a general overview of the different survey elements and some of their basic functionality. Let's get started. So in order to find survey elements, you can click on your pink plus button and head over here to the survey tab, and you'll see here all the different survey elements. Now, these elements are essentially input fields, but they're special or unique fields that kind of fit specific needs, and we'll talk about each one of these today. For a more in-depth video about a particular element here, you can click on the eye icon to learn more. Today will be a more general overview of what we have. So the first one we see here is the rating scale, pretty self-explanatory, but you can have your users choose from a scale of numeric values. You can decide what the range of those values are. So for example, you could do between 1 and 5, and you can change what your scale is, minimum and maximum, and you can even provide labels for your minimum and maximum, for example, not very or extremely, whatever you'd like. And you can basically do the same thing here for the star rating, very similar element, just with an image instead. And so you can, for example, change this max to 5. And the other cool thing that you can do here is if I, let's say, move this max to be 10, and now I also head over here to the steps and I make this a half step, we can see that now when I hover over the star rating, I can actually choose half steps here, so I can actually get a value of 0.5. So for example, 4.5. All right, for our range, this is a nice element. It's similar to our survey and rating scale, star rating and rating scale, except for our range element, we can push a range value to Salesforce. So for example, between 3 and 6, and of course we can change the full range of options that we give here, just like we could for the previous elements. All right, the next element we have here is our ranking, and this element works a bit differently than the other two that we've had so far. This allows you to rank different values. So you can have these be static values, or you can actually pull from a pick list in Salesforce, or even just run a get to this and bring in records from Salesforce. So for example, you can run a get and bring a whole bunch of accounts, opportunities, whatever you would want, and have your end user be able to rank those. In this case, let's just provide a quick example using a pick list in Salesforce, and we'll bring in here just different colors. And now if I preview this, I'm able to actually swap these values. Now, of course, I'm not following my own best practices, and these elements are not in a form element, so you can see what happens when you don't use containers. But you get the idea. I'm able to rank these, and then I can push back these values to Salesforce so that I can identify what the label is, what the value is, and push those to Salesforce. All right. The next element we have here is our quantity counter. This allows you to essentially have your end user be able to count the amount. For example, if they're selecting a particular product and you want to know the quantity of the product, you can use this element to build that. Again, you can have step size of what the increments that it's going to jump. So 5 or 1 or 0.5, anything like that. And you can set different minimum and maximums here. All right, the matrix is pretty straightforward, but essentially we can set up different questions and different answers all in one element and have this be essentially like a radio field for multiple questions. So I can map whatever questions I want here and then provide answers behind the scenes for what exactly each radio button here would push to Salesforce. These two elements right here, survey list and CES, are very similar, work similarly to our different pick list or select items, but essentially I can either give these static or dynamic values like we've seen in the past and have our end user select one of them. So maybe I'll bring in a pick list, or maybe I can also map with a get values from Salesforce, whatever object you want, you can map to these elements and you'd be able to bring them into a list that you can have your end user select from this list grouping. The yes, no is essentially a Boolean element, so it will always output true or false, and you have different options here of how you want to actually display this. So for example, I can make this like, dislike, yes or no, or smiley face or sad face, but in the end of the day, no matter what I choose here, when I click on it, the value that I'm going to get is either going to be true or false, just like this. All right. The final element we have here is our image choice, and this is essentially an opportunity to let your end users choose between a few different images, and you can map those images from Salesforce. You can map those images from Salesforce by doing dynamic values here, and you can bring in dynamic images to this element. Or you can do static values like I've done, and you can choose your images from here, and then you can decide what value each image represents. So here I just have the standard key 1, key 2, and key 3, but you can push any value based on what your user selects, and you can really have some nice creative ideas with what you can do with that. So all of these elements essentially just provide even more opportunity to enhance the experience for your end user. Highly recommend checking some of these out. They can be very valuable to you in your project, and that's how it's done.